Good day, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Faith in Action podcast. With me, your host, Tinashe Mujera. As you all know, I am an author, I'm a woman of faith, and I am on a mission to bring real life stories to you guys to bring transformation and change in your personal lives. I'm super excited for this episode because this is the first episode in the year 2023 that we bring to you, and I am joined by very special guests that are very, very dear to me, who happen to be my sisters, Tsungai and Takunda. We are going to be talking all things sisterhood, and I cannot wait for us to just deep dive into it and discuss sisterhood and what it means, and hopefully you guys will be able to get a nugget or two that will be able to change and transform your lives, or actually bring some advice that you can use in your personal lives or to other sisters and friends that you interact with. I am going to go straight into introducing our guests today. Welcome to my guests. Hello, Tsungai. Hello, Takunda.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Good. So I'm going to start by just allowing you guys to introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you're on about, what your life vision is and your life purpose. And we'll dive into the rest of the things once the introduction part has been dealt with. Tsungai, I'll start with you.
Okay. Right. So my name is Tsungai and Mujera. I am a sister to these two beautiful women, and one brother who's not here. I'm an aunt to my lovely niece, and I am a biotechnology management graduate. Every time I say that, everyone goes, ooh, it's nothing fancy.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah. And my vision is basically to be the salt of the earth. So whatever I decide to do, I have to make it impactful. Not that I want to be remembered, but I want my actions to be remembered. So that's me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. Salt of the earth. That is so powerful. Taku, let's go to you. Can you tell us who you are? Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. As you all had my name before, the youngest sister to those two sisters, and I'm currently pursuing my BCom Honors in Strategic Brand Management. My vision in life is to be an impactful leader in my industry and use that role to inspire other young girls out there and to show them that it can all be done in faith, and you need to put your faith into action for it to be done.
Shoo. An impactful leader. I am surrounded by dynamites. I mean, if you have listened to my first episode of this podcast, I had my brother, my blood brother Tavunga, who is also like a life coach and an author, and he was just throwing nuggets, and everybody's been asking since then to say, when is he coming back again? So now listening to these two ladies introduce themselves, the salt of the earth and an impactful leader, you guys can attest that definitely I am surrounded by greatness and they're all dynamites. So guys, we're going to be talking about sisterhood, all things sisterhood. I think a very important topic that we seldomly really delve into and really unpack and say, what is sisterhood? What is true sisterhood? Is it just because I've got my two sisters who are my blood sisters? Is that sisterhood? Is it because of birth? Is it by birth rather? Or is it friends that you meet along the path of life? What is sisterhood? Tagu, what is sisterhood?
For me, I can say that sisterhood is a safe space. Sisterhood means unconditional love, unconditional support. It means comfort. It means having the support structure that you truly need. And I feel like sometimes it goes beyond us as sisters. It also extends to friends who become family in the long run. It's all about support. It's all about unconditional love. It's all about who is there for you, who is there in times where you need comfort. It's all about someone who you can say, this is my safe space.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm getting goosebumps. Sisterhood is a safe space. That's her definition. I mean, that's what stood out for me. It's unconditional love. Powerful. Thank you, Tug. And Tsungi, can you just tell us what sisterhood means to you?
I think she really summed it all up. There's nothing I can add to that. But the safe space really stood out for me as well, because we don't have much of that these days. And that's what everyone is talking about, a safe space, creating safe spaces in the workplace, everywhere that we need. So I think sisterhood is definitely a safe space, support, and just embracing each other in all our good and bad times. That's it for me, really.
Yeah, I guess also, like you're saying, embracing each other, not only in good and bad times, but in our differences. Because we are all unique individuals that represent different things with different backgrounds, and we all grew up differently and experience life differently. Right. I mean, safe space. What is a safe space? I mean, this just lingering in my head. Someone out there is probably listening and they're like, sisterhood is a safe space, but what does a safe space mean to them? What is a safe space? I know, Taku, you spoke unconditional love. I would probably say is one of the, qualities or one of the things that a safe space would sort of look like. But what is a safe space, Tsungai?
Right. I think it's the ability to be me without feeling prejudiced, first of all, without feeling like I have to change myself in any way, shape or form. Not that people should accept nonsense, if I can put it that way. Yeah, but then there's some instances where you feel like you can't really be yourself. So that safe space means I'm allowed to be myself. I'm allowed to not limit myself. I can explore. I can grow mentally, spiritually, physically. And I'm also encouraged and motivated to be the best person that I can be. Because there's often times where I feel like, I can't really do this. But then these two people tell me, hey, I think you can really do this. And that encouragement helps me to grow. So I think that's what that means for me.
Awesome. Safe space. Do you want to add anything else to that, Tagu?
Yeah, still on that point, I wanted to add that for me, a safe space also means where you draw your inner strength.
Yes.
Where you get re-energized, where you feel like if I am to go to those people and I tell them about what my dream is, what I want to achieve, I feel like it can be re-energized. Where you get the zeal to be what you want to be, where you get the zeal to fulfill what you want to fulfill in life. So I feel like a safe space is where you also draw your inner strength from. And that's sisterhood.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Where you bring your vision and dreams and it is re-energized. That is a safe space for you guys. That is exactly what we're unpacking here. All things sisterhood. And if you've heard it for yourself, that sisterhood is a safe space. And what is a safe space? Is a place where you can be able to show up as your best self, where you are not judged, where you are appreciated with all the characteristics you uphold, how you grew up, who you are as an individual uniquely, but also where your dreams and your vision is able to be energized. That is so powerful. I am super excited about this. And I'm going to go straight into our second question and just discuss, the world we're living in currently and this era and season that we are in. Do you think that people are really upholding the true values of what true sisterhood really is? I know we say sisterhood is not only about blood family like you guys. To me, it's also about friends you meet in life, as you go on this journey, as you continue, to evolve and move in this journey of life. Do you think the world is upholding the true sisterhood values, Taku?
Back to that question again. When I look at values, I look at things that are fundamental to sisterhood. And looking at the world as it is now, I don't think that people actually are upholding the true values of sisterhood, because we live in a world where there's so much judgment.
Yeah.
People have lost humanity and have put themselves and their feelings first before other people's feelings.
Right.
And it's a place where you cannot express yourself freely. You can't be who you are. You have to conform to society's expectations and society's needs. And that has led to many people being broken down.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we are broken down, it affects our cycles of sisterhood. Not only sisterhood, but it extends to other people that might have also become our sisters that we meet along our way of life. So I feel like the true values of sisterhood are not being kept and are not being maintained these days.
Do you know what the cause of that could be? I'm just triggered to just put that out there as well to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I feel like the cause of that is because people now lack humanity. we don't have empathy towards the other person. We now think of ourselves more, and we tend to put ourselves first before others, which is okay. But you also need to develop some empathy for the other person so that you get to understand them from their own point of view. As Tinashe mentioned, that we all experience life differently.
Right.
And how we experience life also extends to how we deal with certain situations. So I think if we can all be empathetic people who can put each other in different spaces of how we grew up and get to understand each other from that point of view, the world can be a better place.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
I mean, I like what you say about people have lost empathy and people have lost humanity. And I don't want to just say, you know, I try and avoid just getting to a place where we already say, oh, you don't have empathy, or you don't have humanity. Because obviously, you know, we all have had life experienced differently. And I believe that there's certain traumas or certain things that people go through that define or literally build into who they are today.
Right.
And I think that is exactly what then makes people to lose the true values of upholding true sisterhood in their different spaces and circles. Tsungi, do you want to unpack with us what you know, those things kind of look like? Where does this thing of not having empathy for your sister, not being, you know, that person who should show some sense of humanity towards the next person? What happened?
Okay. It looks different for different people, but I could pinpoint 2 or 3 examples that are very prominent these days. We live in a dog eats dog world. Everyone is just trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
I think I can get emotional.
That's so true.
Everyone is trying to make a name for themselves, and in so doing, you don't care whose toes you step on to get there. And unfortunately, through that, a lot of values go in the bin. So family values, the sisterhood that we're talking about. Because if you want to get to the next stage, you don't really care whether your sister goes in there with you. You want to go into spaces on your own. You don't want to bring up the next person with you. And it could also be because, you know, the economy climate that we are living in, coming from where we're coming from, especially in Zimbabwe, I could speak from that point of view. Resources are very limited. So you really have to, not that it's right, but then you really have to get what you can get. And in so doing, you develop lack of empathy. We become very insensitive. We become like we're animals, but then we become like the true form of animals themselves. And then we could also talk about trauma. There are a lot of broken families these days, unfortunately. When we speak of families, it looks different for most people. That's why people find sisterhood in friends or become family, because they don't get that from their own family set or from their backgrounds. So you can't, you know, really expect that person to develop sort of empathy because they were not raised to value empathy or to value how the other person feels. So those could be, you know, the main 2 points that I think the lack of empathy is coming from.
Totally. I couldn't agree less with you. You just really unpacked it the way it is. It's a situation around people, poverty in Africa, and the things happening around us. You know, just as you said, it's the traumas we've gone through. People are really dying, and that's why I'm very passionate about healing, because without you getting into a space and a place of truly wanting to heal, you cannot show up fully in sisterhood. Because again, it is a safe space. It is a space of unconditional love. There is no selfishness there. It is a place of your dreams and your visions being re-energized by the circle that you have that will be able to empower you. Super, 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 empowered by your words, ladies. I cannot, say more there. Want to go straight into our next question and talk about growing up and what is one of the most prominent childhood memories that you guys have or remember of us as sisters. Good or bad, just say it as it is. I know I've always been labeled the culprit in the fam, but I beg to differ. However, let's get into it and let's talk about that. And then I think we'll just unpack what family is and means to you. And do you think we grew up in a healthy family where the true values of sisterhood were really embraced? But we'll unpack that as we enter into the segment as well. So Taku, tell me, what is one childhood memory?
Fondest memory of your dear sisters.
Maybe one for each of us.
Okay, mine is very funny. But yeah, I can't say very funny. It's very funny at the same time. It shares some moments of love. It shows some moments of understanding and affection. Yeah.
Get into it.
Let me get into it. I feel like I'm gonna get a bit emotional, but yeah. So one fondest memory of us as sisters was when I started my grade 8. Okay, we call it Form 1 in Zim, and we had just lost our mom when I was in grade 5. So my sister was like the head of the family. Yeah. So she then came to school. I just started school at the same high school where Tsungi was studying. Then she came for visiting. It was my first visiting. Then it was just love. We enjoyed the day, spent the day together. Aww. Then we prayed together. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That just stood out for me. I just knew that in spite of my parents not being there, I still had family.
Yeah.
I still had sisterhood. Yeah. So that stood out for me.
Man. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, now I'm not going to get teary because I still need to remain the host of the show and podcast. That's powerful, Taku. Thank you. I actually forgot about that.
Me too. Yeah. I was trying to search my memory.
Me too. Yeah. Did we really pray? What visit was that? What happened? What was I wearing?
I know you'd ask yourself that. What was I wearing?
Oh, sweet. Thank you, Taku. Thank you. Tsungi.
Mine is not as sweet, hey? So our mother had sent our lovely sister, deputy parent, as we called her, to get us uniforms for the new term. And she gave her $50. At that time, it was a lot of money in Zimbabwe, you can imagine. And I don't know what happened when we were going there during driving, but when we got to the shop at the till, we realized that the $50 was no longer there. And no one had any other money. And because it was a lot of money, we couldn't then go back and say, hey, Mom, we don't have that money that you gave us. Can you give us more money so we can buy those uniforms we were talking about earlier? So instead of her doing the right thing and calling our mother to tell her we had lost the money, she had lost the money. She decided to make us search for the money in the city center, under the cars. I was wearing my lovely 3/4 white pants. They were new. That's why I remember. And the knees got dirty, almost got torn because I was kneeling on the tarred roads, searching under cars for $50. And when we got home, she said I should say I was the one who lost the money for my uniforms because she didn't want to take the fall. So that was it for her. And then for my younger sister, our age difference is only 2 years. So we've been through most of life together. I can't really pinpoint one memory of her, but then she's just been there. She's just a constant. We were through high school together, primary school together. In preschool, she used to cry to come to preschool with me, even though she hadn't reached the age to come to preschool. So I used to go to preschool with her as well. So yeah, we've just been through life together.
Amazing. Tsungi, how dare you take that one and expose me to the public? Growing up, hey guys, that is so funny. I remember that day. That I hadn't forgotten. So thank you for sharing that. You know, as you go back into time and you realize, oh gosh, we grew up like this. This is what I was. This is what I used to do. This is so amazing to realize that you've come a long way to become who you are today. So interesting, Tsungi, and the memories that you just brought out just really literally lighten up my heart, and I'm so glad that you still remember some of these things. So let's talk all things family. I mean, I want to understand, what is family to you? You know, before we discuss, you know, if we grew up in a healthy family, what do you think? Do you guys really think we grew up in a family that we can call healthy and that really truly lived to the principles of true sisterhood? I want to hear from you guys. Where did we go wrong? Where did we go right? What can we make better? What is family, Taku?
Okay, I can define or describe family as where you are nurtured. Where your character is nurtured. Family is where you are brought up. It is how you're brought up. It is your support structure.
Sure.
It is how you grow up and how you put yourself out to the world.
Sure.
That is family for me.
Wow. Where you are nurtured. Wow, I love that. Tsungi, do you want to tell us what family means to you?
For me, family is above everything else, just friendship. Friendship amongst us as siblings, being able to relate to the parents as friends as well. Just being honest and open. That's what family is for me.
I think that's powerful. I think for me as well, just to add on to that, is how you're able to truly show up as the best version of yourself in true vulnerability. You know, without, let me cut this out. I can only tell them up to this far. But truly being you and expressing the fullness of who you truly are, because you know this is, again, a safe space.
Right.
So I think sisterhood and family, truly just the values really somehow just align together.
They are aligned.
Yeah. Do you think we grew up in a healthy family?
I actually don't think we grew up in a healthy family. Okay, one of the first reasons being, I feel like now as an adult, now that I've grown up, I realized that I didn't get as much nurturing as I was supposed to get. It could be that my parents were busy, or they also didn't get that when in their childhood, so they didn't know how to bring us up or to bring it out to us, because I have one daughter who calls me Mama, who happens to be Tinashe's daughter, Atara. I always avoid using the word stop. I always tell her it could be a situation whereby maybe she hit another child and he or she started crying. I'm like, hitting heads. She is crying because you hit her. We're just told that stop hitting her. We're not like exposed to the true things behind any situation, you know. Like we were not, nothing was explained to us. We're just told don't do this. Nothing was explained to us. And I feel like it also goes beyond just nurturing. Because the way you're nurtured also like exposes itself as you grow up, how you react to situations, because I feel like sometimes I lack a bit of self-confidence, not because I don't have confidence. I have confidence, but I was nurtured in a way whereby I was not to question things. And that really affected me. So I feel like that was an unhealthy pattern, and up to now it still really does show up, and when you grow up it now shows up as trauma.
That's it. I love what you're saying, and it's so powerful and so relevant. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was talking to a few mothers and friends, and I was saying to them, I really want to reinvent parenting, because we have been taught, and what has been instilled in us is that pain and fear is what drives parenting or correct parenting, especially when you have to reprimand a child, which I do not think is the right way, because the moment, like you're saying, pain is inflicted, we think beating a child is what's going to bring results, and it does bring results, but is it sustainable?
Or the right type of result?
Is it is it the right type of results? There we go. And then we think again, fear, like, hey, stop doing, instilling fear in a child. Yes, you get the results, but is it the right results, especially in the long run? Because then that's when they build up these traumas, all of these things that they become defensive individuals. They think that without pain, they cannot do the right thing. And we condition them without us knowing, because we too have been conditioned, because of how we grew up, because we grew up in pain and fear. It was instilled. That was the only way to bring the right behaviors, which I think is totally wrong. And again, Powerful insights, Taku, there, right there. And I agree with you. We most likely did not grow up in a healthy family setup, but that was the best of what they knew.
Right.
And that's when we extend compassion unto others, especially our parents, to those out there that are bitter, to their parents because of how they grew up, the traumas they experienced because of parents. You need to show compassion because what else did they know?
They didn't know any better.
They didn't know any better. That's all they knew. And extending compassion and saying, hey, this is their life. It's not my life. This is my life now. How do I want to make it better? Right. And how do I evolve and stop the wrong behaviors that I know are not sustainable and bring in the new that I know is going to do good and be sustainable? So very powerful. Thank you, Taku. And with you, Tsungi, just talking about family and unhealthy patterns, talking about pain and fear. What is your thoughts concerning that?
Oh goodness, this really hits home. I'm also almost gonna ask to pass, but then pain and fear, it's the traumas that are built from there cannot be undone overnight. Unfortunately, for some of us, we're dealing with those traumas even up to now. My sister can tell you she's still unpacking even up to now, because at some point when you feel like, okay, I've gotten over this, I now know how to respond in a healthy manner. Tomorrow another thing shows up and it triggers you. We're listening about triggering on our way here, right? And then it triggers you, and then all of a sudden you're not necessarily back to square one, but at least now you know you're aware. You're coming from a point of awareness to say, hey, these results are showing up because of A, B, and C. So now you're aware. So how do I deal with them? But then as the Black community especially, we really have a long way to go in terms of disciplining our children without instilling pain and or fear.
Because
you can go
because
ahead.
that is exactly what accumulates to you showing up as a true sister, and we're talking all things sisterhood here. It also translates to the kind of woman you grow up into becoming, and the kind of sister you'll show up for your family, but also for the friends you meet along the way. You spoke about the selfish nature of individuals. It stems from there, because it's me and me alone because of how I grew up. And if these things are not dealt with, we continuously have a continuous generation of individuals that grow up without really living to the true standards and values of what true family and sisterhood should look like. Why is I love you? Why is I love you a difficult statement to really, be articulated amongst women, but also just sisters and family, especially in our African culture where we grew up and we cannot say I love you freely. It's almost like I cannot say I love you. It's I don't know how to put, but it's like a taboo. It's like something you really cannot express and say. Why is I love you a difficult thing, Takunda?
Okay, that's a good question, I can say. I feel like I love you is a very difficult thing to say because we didn't grow up being told I love you. Yes. So, in that, you just feel like, okay, I'm not used to this. So if I say I love you to her, it's going to feel a bit awkward. It's very uncomfortable. Also because we're not taught how to embrace one another. Because without embracing oneself, you cannot tell them you love them. Why? Because there are always some parts of them that you always want to criticize. So I think I love you. We can't tell each other I love you as women or as sisters. It's difficult because it is difficult for us to embrace each other. And this has been one of the things that I was thinking along the past 2 weeks. So I was thinking to myself, I have to embrace everyone as they are, because in life you meet different people. You meet different people who grew up in different backgrounds, as Tina was saying, and you have to embrace them. From embracing people, you learn how to love them. And I think I'm on my journey of doing that. I'm one person who's growing on being less judgmental, being more loyal, being more supportive, and just embracing the different personalities that we have. And I extend that same love. For me, one thing that stands out, one thing that I want to be seen, being brought out to the world and to future generations, is for our next future families to not carry on this pattern. That's like I always try to reassure my niece and tell her that, Atara, I love you. That's the words I want her to know. Even after telling her this is a notice. I don't like this. I tell her afterwards, I love you. And mommy is saying it. Okay, this is how I say it. I say it's a notice so that she gets it. Yeah, and I also want to make it, it's a funny thing, but also mommy doesn't like it. Yeah. So I always try to tell her and remind her that I love her.
Yeah.
So that she knows that I embrace her. And I'm seeing that in her. I love her confidence because she knows that she is fully embraced and I love her. So everything I do comes from a point of love. So even if it's reprimanding her, she knows that it's coming from a point of love. So embrace. I'll say this again. It is difficult to say I love you without embracing the other party. If you do not embrace their own personality and their own flaws, then you don't love them fully. But the moment you embrace, you love them.
That's it. Why is it difficult for you to tell me you love me?
Now, most recently, I'm trying to think back to when I couldn't say I love you. Now I can actually do that. So I'm trying to think back when I couldn't say I love you. I think it's because I viewed you as my sister, but is an authoritarian, like an authority figure. So to me, it felt like saying I love you to the police, if that makes sense.
Wow, you've heard it for yourself.
The general.
So I think because we have been working on building our relationship and friendship, and we are continuously doing so. So in doing that, I'm learning to feel comfortable to say I love you. Because I mean it. It's coming from the depths of my heart. So like Taku was saying, I think it's embracing the person, getting to know them, and then you get to that stage where you can say I love you and mean it. Because if you're saying it without meaning, it's just lip service. It doesn't really hit home. So do
you see the power of intentionality and the power of communication? Because like you said, we continuously evolving our own sisterhood here and our own friendship, but we do it through communication and being open and vulnerable with one another, creating that safe space again to say we can tell Tsungi or we can tell Taku or we can tell Tinashe that Tinashe, this is not on, and she'll still embrace it because we still love her, because she knows we love her. She's not going to be defensive because it's not an attack, but it's because we love her and we want to show her where to become a better person, if that makes sense. So really powerful. I'm going to go into the last and very last question of our segment, because I can see this is beautiful and we might overlap the time. The whole day. One powerful question I don't want us to leave without really attending to is, what role do you think fatherhood and brotherhood plays? What role do you think fatherhood and brotherhood plays in sisterhood? Because that is a key critical, element, I think, because to take a look at girls and their fathers, young girls and their dads. There's some sort of identity that is brought by a father to their baby girl. And that is sisterhood already, because that is a girl that's going to grow up into sisterhood. But because there's this father in her life, I want to unpack it. I want to hear from you guys. So what is the role that brotherhood and fatherhood plays into sisterhood? We also have a brother.
We do.
And we know the things that he brings also into our space.
Right.
Tsungi, let me start with you.
I'll say brotherhood and fatherhood is sort of like the glue that keeps sisterhood together, in as much as that doesn't make sense. I'll think back to my brother, Tavonga. If you listen or watch, I love you. So
love you, brother, man.
With Tavonga, he likes to be called Michael for some odd reason. I cannot connect with that name. He is, because we have squabbles all the time, with girls, with women, we're always fighting about one thing or the other. It could be that she took my top without asking me or my shoes, and she wore them without telling me. So with our brother, we use him as our sounding board. So we always go back to him to bring some sense back into the relationship, if that makes sense. Because he's really like an objective figure. So we go back and like, hey, Tinashe or Takunda did this. And then we tell him everything. And then it's like, okay, but look at this from this point of view. And then you're like, oh, okay, I was also wrong and I played this part. But with the father figures, it's really different. With brothers, that's how it works. But with fathers, it's different because fathers build on model for women or girls when they're still young on how to relate to men. And without that perspective, I think sisterhood cannot be formed.
Sure.
Let me unpack why. Because now with sisterhood, you're developing empathy for people, in some respects, friends from outside that you did not necessarily grow up with. People were raised differently to how you were raised. So fathers open you up to that aspect of relationships, because with fathers, it's not a bond that's formed naturally at birth, like with mothers and children.
Sure.
So that's sort of like your first step into relating with people that you're not naturally bonded to.
Sure. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's really deep. That's really deep. That's really deep. Thanks, Tsungai. Taku, over to you. I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay, so to me, I thought about this while she was speaking, and I'm like, fatherhood, brotherhood, sisterhood. How do those three interconnect or correlate? So to me, it was like fatherhood and brotherhood. That's where we get our emotional and physical support as girls. Like my brother, as they mentioned, because he's the male figure who's been in our lives for the longest time. I can go and talk to him about anything. I can talk to him, share how I feel, and he can always be there for me. He's my physical support. I feel like I've got a protector. If someone is going to come and say, I want to beat you now, I can say, hey, Michael, please come and deal with this person. And
we don't support violence.
We don't,
disclaimer.
Okay, we don't condone violence, like Atara always says. We don't condone violence. But yeah. So I looked at it from a perspective of brotherhood and fatherhood is where we draw our physical and emotional support. And from physical and emotional support, you tend to get your strength. You draw your strength from that. Okay, I see my father or I see my brother doing this, because growing up we see most men were the providers for their families, right? Okay, I draw my inner strength of wanting to work hard so that I can be like them. I draw my inner strength of wanting to also be a figure that everyone in the house can maybe look up to, or not everyone in the house per se, but I can say a figure that people will look up to. I also gain inner growth from that. Inner growth. I feel like brotherhood has taught me to develop inner growth. Because my brother, when you do something wrong, my brother doesn't come up to you as this two girls say, hey, why did you do that? No, he sits me down. He tries to put it in a very intellectual way that I can apply to my life and say, okay, since you say this, let me go about it in this way. So I feel like there is some sort of inner growth from that. It's intrinsic. They bring in the intrinsic motivation of wanting to be a better person. And because they bring about that physical and emotional support, so it becomes everything intrinsic, the inner growth and the strength that you then show to the world as you grow up. So I think fatherhood and brotherhood are two vital roles in any sisterhood.
Amen. Amen to that, sister. I love it. Without even diving into it, because we're going to close off the segment now, can we just give a big shout out to a brother? I mean, what you said is just so powerful about him, and I can attest. He's younger than me, but he almost always brings perspective and wisdom and order into my life. And whenever I have anything that I need to talk about, if I give him a call, the advice and the right one definitely comes. So Tavonga, 1, 2, 3, go. We're going to just say, Tavonga, we love you. 1, 2, 3, go. Tavonga, we love you. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure having my sisters, my blood sisters, Tsungai and Takunda, whom I dearly love and whom I'm trying to build a true, sisterhood circle with, in order to actually bring this to the next generation, which is obviously going to be their kids, my kids, and whoever comes after that. So we are really trying to set a new pattern of what we think family and sisterhood should be. And I encourage you to do the same in your own circles, with your own family, with the people that you interact with. Bring this wisdom to them. And hopefully the segment has really been able to bring some insight, perspective, and wisdom into your own lives. With that said, again, I am Tinashe Mujera, your host for the Faith in Action podcast and now on YouTube. And this is our first segment in 2023. I'm super excited for what we'll be bringing you throughout this year. I am still the author of Tinashe with God, The Journey of a Transformed Woman. I'm a podcaster, as I've already alluded to, and recently certified a life coach and an NLP practitioner. Super excited about that. And you will hear more of this as we unpack more of what the Faith in Action platform and the Tinashe by Tinashe platform will be bringing you into 2023. Thank you all for listening. Until we catch you on the next episode of the Faith in Action podcast. Ciao, 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 ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.